On our video for finding the length of the largest word in a string in C, there's a question asking us, how do we print that word too? So in other words, how do we find and print the actual largest word in a string itself using C? So we'll do that in this video. I'm going to open up Xcode and we'll start writing our program. So the first thing we'll do is include a couple libraries to help us. We're going to include the stdlib.h library, because this library allows us to use the malloc function to dynamically allocate space for that largest word. We're also going to include the string.h library, because this library includes several helpful functions for working with strings that we're going to use in our solution. And then the function will look like this. We'll say char star largest word char star s. And the function is going to accept as an argument the string in which we're going to try to find the largest word. And it's going to return a pointer to a character array storing the largest word. So we'll copy and paste this, and we'll provide a definition of the function down here. Now to solve this problem, we're actually going to need a number of variables. The first one we're going to call len. It's going to be an int variable, and it's going to store the length of the string. So we'll say strlens. So this function here, strlens, it's the string length function, and it comes with the string.h library. And it's going to return the length of the string, not including the null terminator. We'll make a variable called count. It's going to be an int, and we'll set it to 0 initially. And count is going to keep track of the number of characters in the current word that we're going to look at. We'll make a variable called max. It's going to be an int, and we'll set it equal to -1 initially. And max is going to be the length of the largest word found so far in the string. We're going to need some character arrays to actually store the word that we're looking at and to store the maximum length word that we've found so far. So here we'll say char temp buffer 256. And this temp buffer character array is going to store the current word that we're looking at. Char max word 256. This is going to be another character array called max word, and it's going to store the actual maximum word itself that we've found so far. We're going to use the size 256 because that's more than enough space to store any potentially largest word. But what we are going to do is once we've found the actual word itself, this is potentially way too big to store the word, because maybe the word only has 12 characters in it. So what we'll do is once we've actually found the word itself, we're going to dynamically allocate just enough space to store that word. And we're going to have one more character array, char non-words is equal to, and this will actually be a string that we store in the character array, and we'll say space, comma, semicolon, \n\t. So what this is a character array that's a string, and it's filled with the characters that we consider to be non-words. These are going to be the characters that separate words. And they're things like spaces, new lines, tabs, that we'd call white space, as well as a period, a comma, and a semicolon that we'd call punctuation marks. And we're actually going to use this character array and its contents to help us detect a word versus characters that are separating words. Now we could have more punctuation marks in here. We could add things like quotations and other forms of punctuation marks, but we'll just leave it at this for now. And then we're going to make one more variable, I, and I is going to keep track of our current index in the string. So we'll say int I is equal to 0 here. So the way that we're going to solve this problem is we're going to have a big outer loop that's going to keep track of whether we've gone through the entire length of the string yet by looking at this counter variable here, I, and checking to see, is it still less than the length of the string? So here we'll say while I is less than the length. And that's going to be our outer loop. Then we're going to have two inner loops. The first inner loop is going to loop through the next word in the string. And we're going to keep track of the length of the word and the word itself. Then we're going to check to see, is that word we just analyzed, is it the new largest word? If it is, we'll set that up and we'll make it the new largest word by altering max and by altering max word to reflect that. And then we're going to have one more inner loop, and that inner loop is going to loop through any of the non-word characters until we reach the next word. So first we'll make that inner loop that's going to analyze the next word. So we'll set count equal to 0 initially, and we'll say while I is less than the length of the string, if str chr non-words si doesn't equal null, break. So what's going on here is strchr is another function that comes with the string.h library. And what it accepts as an argument is a string and a character. Now this non-words character array here has all of the non-word characters that we're going to say separate words. If one of these characters here matches this character here, the strchr function is going to return a pointer to that occurrence of that character, whichever it is, in this string. Otherwise, strchr is going to return null. So if it can't find this character here in this string here, it's going to return null. And so long as it returns null, that means we're not finding this character in this string here. In other words, this character is part of a word, and that's what we want. So if the character is part of a word, we're not going to break. We're going to keep on looking at the rest of this word. And what we're going to do is we're going to store this word one character at a time into the temp buffer, and we're going to keep track of the count of the number of characters in this word. So we'll say temp buffer at count is equal to this character in the string at index I, and then we're going to increment I and increment count. So we're going to increment I so that we continue to look at the next character in this word until we eventually find a character that actually is a non-word character, at which point we're going to break. But until then, we're just going to kind of keep picking off the next character in the string, storing this temp buffer, incrementing the count of this word. Now, when we're done this, we'll set the temp buffer at count equal to the null terminator. Just to put a null terminator on the end of that string to finish off the word. Next, we're going to check if the count is greater than max. So if the count is greater than max, that means the word that we just analyzed and stored into the temp buffer is the new largest word, because max is going to keep track of the largest word we've found so far in terms of the number of characters in that word. So if we found a word that is bigger than the current max word, we'll set max equal to count, because this word is the new max word. Then we're going to use a function called strcpy, string copy, to copy the word stored in temp buffer into the max word character array. It's going to keep track of the actual max word itself. So we'll say strcpy and copy into max word the word in temp buffer. So the next thing we're going to do is loop through any of these non-word characters, so that way we can start looking at the next word in the string again. So to loop through the non-word characters, we're going to have a loop that looks a little bit like this one here. So what we'll say is while I is still less than the length of the string, if strchr non-words at si is equal to null, break. And then here we'll say I++. And really the goal of this loop here is just to advance I to the next character in the string that is a word character. that is not one of these non-words characters. And so what we have here is something very similar to what we did here. Only this time we're checking if strchr non-words si actually returns null. And that's because we want to stop advancing I when we actually can't find this next character in the non-words character array. And that's when strchr is going to return null, when it can't find this character in the non-words character array, which means that it's the next character that's part of a word in our string. So that's pretty much it. Now the thing we're going to do at the bottom of the function is copy from the max word character array, which is 256 characters long, which is pretty large. We're going to copy from that character array into a dynamically allocated character array the string for that maximum word. But we're going to make the dynamically allocated character array just large enough to hold the actual maximum word. So we're not wasting any memory. So we'll say car star word is equal to malloc size of car times max plus 1. So malloc is going to go allocate space on the heap for a character array that we're going to call word. And we're allocating space for the size of a character multiplied by max, which is the length of the largest word in the string, plus 1 to account for the null terminator. And then we'll say strcpy and copy into this word here, the word character array, max word. And then we're going to return word. We're going to return a pointer to that character array on the heap. So this should be it in terms of the function itself. Now I'll have to test it out. So up here we'll say car s is equal to a sentence with several words. And the largest word in this sentence is the word sentence with 8 characters here. Now we'll try to get the word from that sentence. So we'll say car star word is equal to largest word, and we'll call it with s. Then we'll try to print out the word. So we'll say printf %s/n, and we'll try to output the word. We're also going to free word because that is dynamically allocated memory. So we'll save this and run it, and we expect to get back sentence. And we do. So that's how we can find the largest word in a string and print it out as well using C. Check out portfoliocourses.com, where we'll help you build a portfolio that will impress employers, including courses to help you develop C programming projects.